2:47 my time, and you know.
Yeah, it's okay. You're with Bitcoin veterans. You're almost
There
expected.
you go.
It's a bit aggressive for me at 3 o'clock here.
We have a two drink maximum, 1 bowl minimum, and then you should be fine.
It's good. Those are good rules. Good
As the cork gets popped from another bottle.
Sometimes we need more of the bowl side to kind of lift things up. The bourbon side kind of makes things dark for a while. You got to go through the darkness though to get to the light, and that's kind of the model of the show anyway.
I like it.
Kind of a natural progression.
You're out. I don't want to dox you. You're in a desert state out there somewhere.
I'm out in Vegas. Well, not in Vegas, but close enough. Yeah, it's a little bit early here, but I start my day pretty early, right? Yeah. So I'm usually done. I mean, the market closed at 1 o'clock here. So I'm answering emails and stuff, but if I'm hitting the ball over the net for somebody now, and they're in the East Coast or not, I'm not getting the answer until late morning tomorrow, or late morning for them, which would be early for me. So I wake up, I'm good to go. So
I was going to ask you, what kind of hours do you keep? Because I have an Uncle Phil, and he's always been a markets guy, and that guy would go to bed, right after happy hour, right? Like you'd have his 2 bourbons, and then we would never see Uncle Phil ever again after that. And then, he'd be up early in the morning, watching, the London markets open and all that fun stuff. Is that kind of the schedule?
It's changed. Like when I first started my career, it was just regular New York Stock Exchange hours. Like it didn't go home. Like I didn't take any work home with me. I was just a clerk on the floor of the exchange, eventually becoming going into the hedge fund world. And in risk arbitrage, I would take home some material to learn stuff and to study mergers and to understand it better because I started trading them. Eventually got to be trading all of the mergers and running a book. And then it was psychotic. It went from New York closing to New Zealand opening to Australia opening to then Europe. So I would have a window there of a few hours after dinner because I lived in Dallas. Some between dinner and about 2 o'clock in the morning when I started getting phone calls from and back then we had Blackberries. So I would just get messages. I could hear it beep once. I look over and I see the little light flashing. I was like, oh, here we go. And so I had to leave the bedroom, go work for an hour or two, and then go back to bed for a couple hours. And then I was back up at 6 a.m. That was psychotic. I don't do that anymore. You could. I mean, look, Bitcoin trades 24/7. I have a Bitcoin fund, a Bitcoin focused fund. I could literally do this 24/7, but I don't.
Yeah, for everybody that's out there, James is only like 31 years old. He just he just keeps on hours. You got to get proper rest.
That's how I stay so young.
Hey, man.
Drinking bourbon at 1:30 in the morning.
And when he's not in the markets, he's playing hockey, which is I tell you what, that's another way to stay young.
Oh man, I don't play hockey anymore. I'm too battered. This shoulder's been injured, like it's been dislocated and separated twice. This one's been dislocated and separated 3 times. Actually, it's vice versa. Blew out my knee. I've literally had every single inch of my body x-rayed, every single one. And I've had the funny thing is I've broken one. I blew out my knee. That was the worst injury I've ever had. But I've only broken one bone my whole life. And that was when I was 12 years old and I fell off my freaking bike. I flipped over the handlebars.
BMX?
Yeah, exactly.
Were you
over the handlebars? Well, I was coming home from the trails and there was a bottle in the road and I was looking back at a buddy and I hit the bottle and went over I wind up dislocating and breaking my arm. I mean, I've never broken a bone since. I've had cracked ribs, but it was really more separation of the cartilage. I've been hit with a stick as I was on a breakaway from the defenseman turns, and this is in college, and he turns and he kind of swipes my head. I go in the breakaway, I miss the breakaway, I go back to the bench. I'm like, God, that really hurt. And then I realized there's blood everywhere. And this is right after Magic Johnson. So they had to usher me out and get me all cleaned up because NCAA Division I like is a big deal. And so they're like, you can't bleed on the ice or each other. I'm like, it's hockey, dude. So they take me into the locker room and he no Novocaine, like no, he literally took his wallet out. My trainer, he was a Yale doctor, took his wallet out and said, "Here, just bite this." And I bit on his wallet as he stitched through the cartilage of my ear, and because it was split down the middle, and so each time it came out, like each,
Oh,
and they just taped it all upside this big white,
Nice.
gauze hanging out of my helmet. I'm like, I look like a stormtrooper.
Yeah, man. Hockey players are a different breed, man. I don't know how you do it. I mean, obviously I'm a pretty tough guy. It's a different kind of animal
Different kind of stupidity. It does.
Yeah. I mean, it's not only the brutality
it's incredible because you can be so intelligent and curious and so stupid at the same time. It's like,
it's wild.
It's a yin and yang. It's balance.
Yeah.
Male archetype.
Sorry, Gabe. Go ahead.
No, it's special, man. It's a special thing that I'm never gonna do. I went to a game a couple months ago, a couple hours away from a little minor league game, and these guys, I mean, especially you look at the minor league dudes, like they've got something to prove, and they're out there beating the shit out of each other. Mm-hmm. And to top it off, not only, not just like, rugby is pretty damn tough, but I mean, these guys like got sticks and, they're bashing each other with everything that they can find. But on top of that, it hurts worse when you're really, really cold. And it's dude, plus if you fall, you've got the ice punching you in the face. That's something special, man.
Once you get to college and beyond, it's actually hot in the rinks because you got all the people, and it's and the crowd, and it's just hot in there. And in fact, it's too hot sometimes. So it's not pleasant. You're just soaked through, like everything's soaked through. Yeah. Your equipment like is dripping. You take it off. It's awful. So, but I mean, I tried to play after I gave up. After I retired, I went to Wall Street and I played for a team there. It's this team called St. Nick's. It's one of the oldest teams in America, actually. And they used to play against the big college. We played against college teams even back then. But after that, I went down to Dallas and I was just working in a hedge fund, and I got asked to come go play in a league, and there weren't a lot of us around who had played at a high level. And I thought, I'll go play, whatever. And I mean, I go and they're trying to take my head off, like they're coming at me with they're coming in with a hatchet. And I'm like,
wow,
dude, I got to go to work tomorrow. This is not the Stanley Cup. Like, you gotta tone it down a bit. Like, this is like men's hockey, but I'm supposed to be drinking a Miller Lite here. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So that didn't last. I didn't play men's hockey for too long. I was like, this is not going to work. Yeah. So, but it's fun. It's a fun game. It's a fun sport. I still love watching it. We had season tickets to the Knights a couple years ago.
I was going to ask if you were a Knights fan.
Yeah, I mean, I've migrated. They took over the town here. It was actually a really big deal. Mm-hmm. That was the month they had the shooting here in Vegas, and the team that kind of they came out and dedicated the game to the victims, and it was a really big deal, and it was a rough time here because most of those people were locals, mm-hmm. And so the team and so the town adopted the team. It was the first real pro sport we've had here, like at high level. I mean, we've had minor league hockey, and we have pro soccer, but of the big sports here in America, that it was the first one. And so people here were like, what is this hockey thing? These guys are crazy. Wow, they fight. Like they're not going to stop the fight. They can just fight, and they're just going to keep fighting. And if you go in person, you can see it on TV, and it looks like it's going fast. But when you go in person, you're sitting in the first few rows. You're like, well, these guys are really like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, he just hit, and wow. So it was a little embarrassing. you know, because nobody knew what was going on. They would cheer for things that you wouldn't cheer for. And there were no,
that was not a good thing.
Get the puck, but you know, like, I'm like, oh God, it's like, we're starting, like, it was literally like youth hockey, you know. But we found our own. You know, nighttime, and then they have the whole. It's Vegas, right? So they've got the whole show. It's kind of like a dinner and a show. You know, you go in, you've got the whole show with the sword. And it's like, I mean,
Nice.
It's so stupid, but it's hilarious. It's so Vegas. It's like, and so we would go, and people, and I mean, I bought season tickets because I was only here half time. I was going back and forth to Dallas, and I wasn't going to be here all the time. So I was going to sell half the tickets. Meanwhile, my wife suddenly gets into hockey, and she's like going to every single game. So we don't sell any, but that's neither here or there. But we're sitting there around. And so I got tickets that were behind the offensive opposing goal. So our defensive goal, two out of 3 periods. That's where I got the tickets, because I figured it'll be easier to sell. And so we're surrounded by people who just came in as a destination. They come in to see a hockey game. Yeah, honey, I'm going to see the Knights. Right. So they come in with their buddy, and they go to the Knights game, and they're sitting there. They're like, is every game like this? This is nuts. And people are just cheering the whole game, just cheering. Like, we get the puck. We got the puck. Oh, we make it pass. Oh, we made a pass. We get the shot on goal. Oh my God, we made a shot on goal. We made a save. It's crazy. And they're like, these, like, your fans are crazy for this game. We're like, yeah, it's new to us, you know, it's fun. So
that's nice, man. Oh yeah, the players on both sides are walking out of there with confidence levels completely off the charts.
Like,
they cheered for everything I did.
Everything, literally, they were cheering for everything.
That's the way it was down here in Atlanta. We had access to some really good seats behind the visitors' bench in Atlanta down here for the Thrashers. It's actually the first date I went on with my wife, and you know, like, the entire time, like, this crowd is like, these towns that don't and shouldn't have hockey because it never freezes and nobody actually plays in nature out here. Like, they are so much different. I mean, you go up to like Minnesota to a Wild game, and it's another kind of hockey.
Yeah, you go up to, like, back in the 80s and 90s, you go see those Bruins games. Oh my God. I mean, it was like, it's a different world. These Bruins against the Canadians. I mean, it was vicious, you know.
Yeah.
And then you come out here, and you had this Western style of play where it was really open, larger ice surfaces, a lot of open ice, a lot of offensive play. Gretzky came down to LA. It was just like a lot of flow, you know. And then up in literally the same time, you've got New Jersey was playing this thing called the trap, where they just literally suffocated you, and there was no flow, and there was just like there was nothing happening. It was just, the puck just would stop, and like people would just, like, it was just awful. So, but it's kind of that's why they got rid of the red line. But you know, it's evolved. It's fun. I wish that Canada had more teams. I'm actually sad that we've taken most of them, you know. I wouldn't mind to see Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup, to remain in the Stanley Cup here. So,
what do you mean there's no Canadian team? Every team is Canadian. It's our Canadians can beat your Canadians.
It's true. And here's the funny thing is, so when going into college, I really actually wanted to play for Cornell. It was 2 hours from my house, you know, and so I really wanted to play for Cornell, and I had the grades. I was getting recruited by the Ivy League schools, and so it looked like it was going to work. And then, you know, the coach of Cornell, he called me. He's like, "You're a good player and everything, but I mean, I just don't have a spot for you." And I was like, "God, that's just nuts. I just can't believe this." I pull up the roster, and there were 2 Americans on the whole team. They were all Canadian. And this is before the wall. This is like right as the wall was coming down, right? So then suddenly you had Russian players, Swedish players, you know, like Eastern European players just started flooding in, you know. And we had a kid who was from Yugoslavia on our team, you know. So it changed, but yeah, back then it was like almost all Canadians. You look at all those teams are half Canadian, all the colleges. So it was pretty wild.
Back when all the whites were coming for our jobs.
Oh, there goes
Them
YouTube.
Canadians and Russians coming for our American jobs.
Thanks, Jordan.
Sorry, YouTube.
Oh man. Well, I mean, it's 7:02. If Alex shows up, I hope he's okay. We'll let him in, I guess. You know, as part of the show.
It's always me on the show. He's like, eh.
Oh, it's just lavish.
I see him all the time. Whatever.
All right. Without further ado, buckle up, ladies and gents. Here we go. Welcome to Bitcoin veterans, ladies and gents, hooligans, hockey players. I should say, I was about to announce this. We're Bitcoiners. We're veterans. I say this every week, but it's very self-explanatory here. We talk about Bitcoin. We talked about some veteran stuff. Today, we'll probably talk a little bit of hockey like we have been and warming up here. We were having a good flow. I think James might be the only other guest we've had that's given me a run for my money with dislocated shoulders and head injuries. Which, I mean, it's
how many times have you broken your nose?
Oh, numbers. I mean, look at that thing. It's
I have you beat.
How many back operations?
No back operations, but I've definitely broken my nose at least 7 times.
Let's see.
Jesus.
Just kidding.
It's a good start.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you guys don't know James Lavish, I don't know what rock you're under, but we are lucky enough to have him here tonight. He is. I've known James for a little while now. He's always been that really gracious guy that is very good with his time, and we wanted to thank him for coming on the show. Before we get into everything, though, we got to do some bill paying around here, and since Alex isn't going to be here for at least a little bit of the warm up, we'll see if he comes in. I'll go ahead and do this. KC Kettle Company is one of our first and only sponsors right now. They have been so gracious to give us some amazing discounts, but let me tell you about them first. KC Cattle Company is a company that understands the power of decentralization and going direct to the producer, to the consumer. They get Bitcoin. They're on Nostr and Twitter. You can DM them there and tell them you heard about KCC on this podcast. Say hi, get to know them. A portion of their sales goes towards helping vets and the show. For those of you in our chat groups, we have a special discount code to buy beef from KCC using fiat. Contact us for details. KCC is also offering a special 21% off half beef if paid in Bitcoin. You can catch the link in the show notes or on YouTube or in our Twitter post. And last but not least, when checking out, mention that you heard about KCC through Bitcoin Veterans and get a gift package of Wagyu beef hot dogs for free. I tell you what, guys, I know Jordan, you're out of town right now, but some of the beef that I've gotten from these guys it's pretty incredible.
Dude, have you had the dogs yet?
I didn't get the dogs, and hey, Pat, if you're out there listening right now, I don't know where the hot dogs were for my order, but they definitely weren't there.
Pat will fix that, but the dogs are delicious. I mean, everything I've had from there so far is delicious. I'm just gonna go on a rant. This isn't even like a plug. This is just like I'm gonna talk about some like good protein beef. Fantastic dogs, fantastic steaks. Like, I'm not even saying that to like hype anyone up. It's just good food.
Yeah,
and I appreciate good food.
We actually had some for my 70th or my mother-in-law's 70th birthday last night. Which is not my 70th. This is how I stay young too.
Damn.
I know, right?
I had no idea.
It's impressive.
Oh man. So James Lavish, our guest tonight, reformed hedge manager. He is an ex-Yale hockey player. He's author of the Informationist newsletter, and you can check that out at jameslavish.com. Thanks for showing up, James. We appreciate it.
Awesome to be here, Shane, with you and Gabe and Jordan, and happy to be here.
Have you seen these guys running around at any of the conferences yet? The Bitcoin veterans with their logos and everything.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. So I mean, I've got a good friend here who's soon to be a brother-in-law, I believe, and he is a 22-year veteran, I think, in the Army. He was in the parachute infantry regiment. And he's been deployed in Kosovo and Haiti and Afghanistan. He's a Purple Heart. Yeah, I think he's been blown up in his Hummer. I think he's been blown up 18 times. Shot twice.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's a tough dude.
Kind of
Really
makes your
tough dude.
7 nose breaks look like nothing.
And all of that. Yeah. I mean, come on. Did you break your nose 7 times? Please.
Yeah, he needs to stop complaining.
Yeah.
Right. And he doesn't complain ever. The guy dropped like a safe on his foot, and he's like, "Ow."
Yeah. I mean,
no, and here's the best part about it, though. I mean, not the best part. He's like, that is really crazy, awesome. But his name is John Heitzelman. He's a Bitcoiner. So he's always talking to me about Bitcoin. He's all in. He understands. He's been orange pilled and he loves it. So you'll see him around here as he grows into the space. So
nice.
You need to get him in the chats.
Yeah, we need to get him into the chat for sure.
If he's on the Bitcoin mission already, that'll be a no-brainer for him. He can come in and have a good time with all these guys. I swear, it's like, there's something about hockey players that, you guys just fit right in with vets. You got a great sense of humor, sometimes very dark, and we appreciate that kind of stuff. Drugs and alcohol, whatever, that stuff too. But, you got to take the good and the bad together. But James is also the co-managing partner of the Bitcoin Opportunity Fund. It's a hedge fund that makes public and private investments in Bitcoin. When did you get the idea for this, and who are you talking with, and how did you guys get this thing moving in the right direction?
Yeah, it's a good question. As I came into space, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my experience, because I had left the hedge fund. I was with a public-private hedge fund before this, and during the pandemic, the long story really short is that I got separated from my wife for 100 days because we were living in 2 cities, and I got locked down in Dallas. She was locked down out here, and so I had my oldest was already in college, my youngest was heading off to college, and I was like, what am I doing? So I packed up my truck and drove out here and never left, and unwound my position from here at the hedge fund in Fort Worth. And so I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then I started studying, and my son hit me up and he's like, "Hey Dad, I know you're leaving your firm there, but I think you got to check out this crypto thing. I think that's you should look into investing in this." He's a kid at Cornell and surrounded by really smart kids. And what are they doing? Shit coins, that's what they do. Right. So, but he was mostly invested in Bitcoin, and he's like, "Really, I think you really ought to check out Bitcoin. I think you'd really like this." And so I did. I started looking into it, and eventually just dedicated all of my time, all of my investing research into Bitcoin, and meeting people. I met people online everywhere. Just meeting people through spaces on Twitter. And I didn't know anybody. I literally had 700 followers on Twitter, and 680 of them were 20 of them were my family, and 680 of them were authors, because my wife is a novelist. And so when I had posts on Twitter, I joined in 2009. I think I had 9 posts, and they were all about my wife's books. Right. So whatever. And so, I started actually meeting people and talking to people, and lo and behold, I met this guy, Greg Foss, and we were talking, and we were on a drive home from California, and he's like, "Have you thought about starting a hedge fund? I think you should start a hedge fund." I was like, I'm not sure the space is mature enough for that, And he's like, "No, I really think you should. I think and I know that there's plenty to do here, but it seemed like the only real path to having a fund in the Bitcoin space was venture capital, like early stage investing, angel and early stage investing. And I thought that's not there's enough of those. We have 1031, you had ego death that was coming out. I was like, I don't know. And then just thought through it. And I thought, look, with my experience and my knowledge of the hybrid vehicle, which is not easy to implement. I mean, like it is a complicated venture to implement operationally. Most people won't do it. I have actually talked to people who have done it. There's somebody in the space who started to do it, and he's got it set up in a way that's going to produce problems for him later. And I know it because I've seen it, I've done it. And so because I felt so comfortable with that, I was like, well, if we could do public and private investments, we could do anything. We could invest in distressed opportunities. Celsius was starting to come apart at the seams, and later on you had FTX. But I thought we could buy assets, we could buy debt, at pennies on the dollar, and I've done all of this stuff: distressed investing, convert investing, preferred investing, public bonds, private bonds, public opportunities, public companies, private investments in companies. Options, swaps, derivatives, whatever. I mean, literally done it all in my 30-year career, not because I wanted to. It's just that I was in a hedge fund and we did everything. And so I was in multiple hedge funds and we did everything I had a taste of everything along the way. And so I felt pretty comfortable with it. I was like, we could take advantage of anything in the space. And if I open up my opportunity set to take advantage of anything, okay, now this is interesting. Now I don't have to just do early stage investing. I could do some public investment. I could do some private investment. I could do public mining, private mining. I could have my own miners. I could do, which we're doing, and so, but I can do debt. We're doing that. We're doing secured debt. We're doing something with a preferred. We're doing public investments, private investments. So, but that's really how it came about. Is Greg said, we really should look into this. He said, I can't run it. I've got too much going on, but I think that you and Larry ought to talk. And I talked to Larry. He said, well, Larry's got his fund he was focused on. He introduced me to David Foley. And then David Foley and I just clicked. It was like, yes, this is perfect. Traditional asset manager, come traditional space. We talk the same language. We look at the world the same way, but we're both Bitcoiners. And so we can take that knowledge and experience and kind of apply it to the space, which not many people have done because it's just been seen as a risk on asset. But we're looking at it a different way, and we're like, well, this can be a really long-term growth opportunity. And so we're looking at that kind of that light. So then we talk to Mark Moss, and he brings a world of knowledge and experience in Bitcoin. And he brings the same kind of he's got a different business sense, very entrepreneurial business sense, which is different than what I've done and what David has done. And so he brings that angle. We partnered with Swan, hoping to have a little bit of distribution and exposure there. But it wasn't really with Swan. It was with Corey and in a company that he's got a couple of people in. But it's been interesting. So all of that came about. And we thought, we can do all this, Shane. And then the world fell apart. Celsius, the wheels came off. Then FTX happened, and it was like the washout completely. Nobody wanted to invest in the space. Forget about institutional investors. We thought that maybe we'll get into family offices. We've got a couple, a handful that are further down the line than people. But it was a dark period to try to raise money in this space. It was a challenge.
If you guys don't mind, I'm going to ask one follow-up question to this. It sounds like you guys have had your hand in a lot of different organizations here in the Bitcoin sphere, and I'd be very curious as to you can shine a spotlight on whoever you like here, but who's been maybe just the best to work with, or the most proud that you guys were investing in and seeing them grow?
Well, it's a good question. And when you're doing early stage stuff, typically you're not seeing rapid growth right out of the gate. They're getting their ducks in order. They're getting to market. They're working on getting their operations in order. They might be working on legal issues. There's all kinds of different paths to profitability. But one of the early investments we made, and our favorite thing to do, Shane, is to find investments where we can be denominated in Bitcoin all along the way. Right. So we've got an investment in this company. And there's a lot of them. I'm excited about Anchor Watch. I'm excited about Epic. I'm excited. We've got Bob Burnett. We're doing barefoot mining and in the Dakotas with him. And that's just like, we own the assets. We own, like, that's not something we're investing in the company. We actually built the company, and they're super excited about that. But Jamie McCavity over at Cormint, where he's got stranded green energy out in West Texas because these geniuses built all this green energy and no pipeline to take it east. So he's taking advantage of that. And so, but we're invested in debt in that company, but it's denominated in Bitcoin, and we're getting our yield in Bitcoin. And so, and we've got a preferred in that company. And so in the equity in that company. And so we actually have upside to it as well. It's not just a simple bond, a simple debt note. So, but as Bitcoin does appreciate, we get the benefit of that because we're denominated in Bitcoin. So we look at the world where most of our treasury is sitting in Bitcoin. We have to have cash for operations and certain opportunities, but making sure we have our margin taken care of, because they don't margin a lot of this stuff at prime brokers yet. But we look at the world as though, would it be better? Because Bitcoin is a tremendous risk reward opportunity. It's the best I've ever seen. Back when it was 19,000, it was absolutely hands down the best I've ever seen. Now, the question is, are some of these investments that are denominated in Bitcoin better? Is there something that's not denominated in Bitcoin that is a better risk reward, or deserves some sort of allocation in our portfolio when you look at it head to head against your treasury? And that's really the benchmark for us. It's a high bar, but we've got a few companies that have met that hurdle, and we're excited about it. So
that's awesome. It's so cool to see so many people in this space now, as Bitcoin is gaining some traction. We're entering, maybe this early bull market, to see it get put back into this same community. And boy, that's something that really fuels me, is people are starting to talk about legacy here. And the fact that you guys are on this side of it as early as you are, making sure that a lot of these startups and organizations that maybe wouldn't have had a foot in the door have a foot in the door. It's an incredible thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it's exciting. We are super excited about the opportunity and the growth in the space, and that's it. We want to help bring some of these companies along best we can, and then spread the word about it. So that's our mission.
James, what are you seeing as the greatest factor in an increase in institutional interest in Bitcoin right now?
Well, I mean, the greatest of operational and functional factors, obviously the ETFs. I mean, those ETFs, I've talked about it before, but it's very difficult for an institution just to buy Bitcoin. Like, man, we've all been able to front run these guys for years and years and years. They just can't do it. It's just such an operational hurdle for them. I'm talking about hurdles, is that, man, they've got to, even if they're orange pill, they understand it through and through fully. They look at it as a separate asset class. They believe in it, not just as a risk on asset, but as a risk off asset. And they want to invest in it long term. They've got to get so many approvals along the way to do that. They've got to get all their operational policies in order to do that. And they've got to get buy-in from the chief investment officer or their chief portfolio officer, their head portfolio manager. They've got to get the buy-in from their general counsel and their compliance committee. And they've got to make decisions about who's going to hold, how they're going to hold the keys. They're going to put it with a qualified custodian. They're just going to keep it at Coinbase. I mean, that's not really, it hasn't been a custodian that has been recognized by these institutions as someplace that want to hold any capital. And so, you know, I mean, where are they going to market? They trades 24/7. How are they going to settle it? Who's going to settle it? Is this exchange that they're trading on Kraken, like Coinbase? Like, does it have any oversight? Is it regulated? You know, can they have margin on it? And really, and when it comes down to it, that the ETF in one fell swoop solved all of that, you know, because now they can buy it with a broker that they already use, on exchange that they're already comfortable with, that has regulatory oversight, settle it with a prime broker that they are already have business with, have a custody there. They know there's no margin on it right now, just like a micro cap stock. That's fine. They know where to market. It closes in the New York Times. It's just like buying any other stock for them. So it's very simple. It's made it very simple for them. But this is a huge but. They still don't understand it fully. And I talk to people in the street and they just don't understand it yet. They're like, yeah, I like those cryptos, you know, I like Bitcoin or whatever. I bought some ETH. I'm like, well, that's not Bitcoin, you know? Yeah, but I own Bitcoin and I own that other Bitcoin, the ETH. No. Okay. So, and these are smart people. They just are not, you know, they just don't get it. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but they are starting to get it. And these ETFs are bringing it, you know, right to top of mind. And so now we're going through this window. We've got this period of like 90 or 100 days where it's kind of a quiet period for these big banks, where they have to see how it evolves, how it trades. Are there any issues with it? Operational issues? How is the settlement? Are the ETFs really keeping very strongly, very correlated to the price of Bitcoin, or are there deviations there that we have to be aware of? How much does it cost? You know, like but all this is being ironed out. It's showing there's no problems. A lot of capital has come into the space. And so you're seeing these guys start to dip their toe in, and they dip their toe in, they get a little bit of position, and they, you know, and now you're seeing the big banks who are saying, okay, we've got everything in order. We've got our little, you know, PDF that we're giving to all of our brokers. And if you're an RIA, this is what you're going to say to your client. We do not recommend you buy Bitcoin, but if you want to, you can. And here it is. Here are the ETFs you can buy them with. Eventually, they'll get to the point where they can recommend them, but they're not there yet. But they're at least getting to the point where they can offer them. And so that's important. So that's a big deal. And it's going to play out over the course of the next few years. It's not going to just happen over the next 2-3 months. Like, you're going to see this steady flow over the course of a few years. And eventually you'll see this, you know, this trickle will turn into a river, and you'll just, the volatility will dampen a little bit. Understanding will go way up. And so that risk of holding it last year, which was a career risk for a portfolio manager, is flipping. And it's flipping from, it's a career risk to hold it because you're way out there on the risk curve, to the risk of not holding it, because all of a sudden everybody else has a little bit. How can I not have a little bit in my portfolio? And you're seeing all of the metrics of how it actually gives you a better risk-adjusted return over the course of 3 to 4 years. Not only is it a better return, but it's a better risk-adjusted return, because Bitcoin is in fact uncorrelated to the other markets. And so they're learning it and they're getting there. And I think that it's only going to continue. And with that understanding, as that understanding grows, and the more money comes into the space, it makes it easier to trade. It makes it easier to get in and out of these positions and to add to it and hold it long term.
Yeah, and I'm also curious, if y'all don't mind me asking a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So, what do you see as the likelihood that that there will be a concerted effort to direct people towards the ETFs and that type of ownership, and then continuing to limit the path to self-custody? Do you see? I mean, what do you see that you can speak on with that?
Did I freeze?
Yeah, your video is frozen.
Nope.
That was a pretty cool trick, though.
Well, I mean, him and Guy Swan, man, they got the same camera over there.
Here we go. Can you at least hear me?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So I don't know what happened to the camera. I'll try to fix it as I'm talking. I think it's a high likelihood that they push us toward some sort of custody that's very apparent that they can see. You know, they can see what you're doing in your holdings, and you know, I think this is. I'm just gonna keep talking. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So I think that the issue here is that you've got Elizabeth Warren and all of her lackeys. They want total control of the money. You know, they're trying to head down the path of CBDCs, right? So because of that, they want to see anything you're doing in the space. They don't want you to have any kind of autonomy. They want to be able to track any kind of transaction. And it's obvious they don't want money outside the system. They need money to stay in the system for it to remain viable, right? And so that's really the point. And so because of that, I think that they're going to make it very easy to hold the ETFs, and they're going to make it onerous to hold to custody Bitcoin yourself. So that was user error. I had to put another battery in that thing. Sorry.
Cool. No problem.
Apparently it doesn't charge while I'm whatever. So so I do think that they will. I've experienced it, Gabe, with the hedge fund. The choke point 2.0 it's real. Unfortunately, I mean, we had so many problems with people just trying to wire money to us and it being held up, it being blocked, it being refused, banks saying, no, you can't send money here. It's not, it's a crypto company. We can't allow that. We can't allow you to, send funds to a fraudulent company. We're the LP is in Delaware, the GP is in Nevada. You can see everything we're doing. We have a tax ID. What do you want? And we got through. We got every single wire resolved, every single bank. But even Wells Fargo was doing it. They were like, "No, we're sorry. You cannot send money to this company because it's got crypto in its name. Like it's not crypto. It's Bitcoin. Whatever." Okay, we resolved it, but we felt it, and it's real. And so you saw today a vote about about Bitcoin in custody, and the I think the Republicans overwhelmingly voted to overturn it, the SEC and oversight, and then the Democrats overwhelmingly voted for it. So I mean, come on, I mean, I'm not political because I think they all suck, but yeah. It's clear
that's the right answer.
It's clear that the administration is coming after, it's coming after it. They don't like it. So it's
and it seems that, you made a good distinction there between, what they're going to make easy and what they're going to make difficult. And the reality is that we know, I mean, most people are just going to go for what's easy and then just, let it go. They're going to set it and forget it. They're going to go ETF and just roll out. And it's, I believe we're going to see the continued attempts to criminalize those that emphasize cold storage and holding their own. And it's interesting to see how things are developing and how they'll continue to develop, especially as we move deeper into this election season, and how they're going to present themselves. I'm not going to say how they're going to take sides because they're on each other's side, and there's one side there and it's not ours. But it's going to be interesting to see the theater that they produce on that.
It is all theater. I liken it, playing hockey, okay, where this is not like war. It was a game. And so we would go out there, and it was a show. We would go out there and we would literally kill each other. I would break each other's faces and bones, and we would literally, and after the game, we're high-fiving all in the same bar, hanging out, having beers.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we hate each other on the ice, but we go out, but then we go after the game because we're all on the same show. We're all in the same show, it's all theater. It's all theater for the fans, were we really fighting? Yes, it wasn't WWF. We really were fighting just because we're psycho and we could, do that and then go have a beer afterwards. Hey, buddy, wow, you really got me. Look at
But that summed it up. That summed it up. Politics perfectly. We were psychos, and it was like, yes, they're also psychos. They'll punch each other and then go have drinks afterwards and be like, oh, you got me good on that one, you
Come on, I mean,
motherfucker.
Kamala high-fiving, Pence after that. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Right.
The big difference here is hockey players at least have proof of work.
Yeah.
You guys are full of shit.
Yeah. So, but it's all theater, Gabe. I agree.
Man, that was a great example.
I think it's really awesome what you're doing though, because you're able to bridge both worlds, and I think that's really important this cycle, especially with the ETFs coming out, and like, at least from my personal experience, like older retired people like worrying about their investments and kind of looking at things differently, like they kind of understand that, like, yeah, I've missed the boat. They think that they've missed the boat on this Bitcoin thing, but then they're also getting like a little bit of light from whether it's the ETFs or it's just becoming more mature and people understanding it a little more. They're wanting to find ways into the game, and like with things like your informationist, that's made it really easy for me to show people like, hey, look, like this is this guy's analysis. This is the world he's coming from, but he's also like, he understands Bitcoin. But a lot of times, like the information, you don't really talk about Bitcoin ever really. You might kind of say a blurb at the end where you're like, that's why I'm invested in Bitcoin and gold and, these different things. But to give them that like macro picture of things where they may not always be able to like put these things into their own, like they can't make sense of it, but then you make sense of it very simply. And I guess I don't really have a question here. Just a comment. Like, I think it's really important in the space right now.
Thank you. And, that just came about as I was just writing I was writing a newsletter. I thought I wanted to write one. I thought it was going to be about Bitcoin. Then I realized really quickly that, look, I need to learn a whole lot more about this space before I can ever write about it. And one thing I know about that people want to hear about is this crazy world of economics and macroeconomics and the Fed and Treasury and how this stuff works and swaps and CDSs and all that, like options, like how does this stuff work in a way that I can understand it? So I used to say to my wife, I'd say, look, I could teach you how to do risk arbitrage, merger arbitrage. I could teach that to you. She's like, no way. I said, walk her through a trade. She's like, oh, I think I could do that then. Yeah, you could. And she hates math. She's self-professed allergic to math. And she's an author, she's a novelist. But that was the point. It's like, if I could teach you how to do this or how to just understand this, maybe that'll give you a leg up and make you a little bit better prepared to defend your own capital. And that's really what it's all about. It's because we're on defense of our own capital 24/7. We are defending our capital because they're coming for it every day. They're coming for it. There's somebody with their hands out. There's somebody with their hands out trying to take it, trying to, grab you with fees, grab you with a stupid trade, grab you with a dumb idea or a bad investment. It's like, hold on, mate. You like, be thoughtful, be disciplined. And this is why these things matter. So you hear people say, you can talk about the reverse repo. It doesn't matter to the average investor. I understand it doesn't matter to the average investor, but when they're sitting here listening to all these things that the pundits are saying, if they know in their mind what's going on, they go, oh, I understand now. I understand why he's saying that. I get why he's saying that. And why I understand now why Powell is saying that in the presser. Now that makes sense to me. Not because they understand the repo market. That's not the point. The point is to understand how it all kind of fits together. Not at the level where you're going to go and start making repo trades. You need a lot of money to do that anyways. But and bank charter. But it's for you to understand how these things work. I think it's helpful, and it seems like a lot of people are interested in it. So I'm going to keep doing it, and I appreciate that, Jordan.
Yeah, I appreciate you pumping them out every week. Keep it going.
You're welcome.
Hell of a that was a good rip there. I was going to say, I've got one in here from, where did it go? Here it is. Our resident Navy SEAL, Randy Kelly. He says, curious how James sees us in the debt spiral. What's in store? He obviously wants to hear some doom and gloom. So let's
It's over, man. It's all over.
Mike's not here.
Get the dark part of the episode.
Cut off the lights. Well, yeah, that's a good question, and I have in my Twitter handle or on my Twitter page, I've got a pinned tweet. Then the debt spiral is in there, and debt spiral 101 or 201. It was an update for it last year, but where are we? For your listeners who don't know about the debt spiral, which I can't even imagine they haven't heard about this. I've been talking about it for.
It's your lucky day. You're going to be
going on for almost
if you haven't heard about it.
So what's that?
I said you're going to be super excited if you haven't heard about it.
Oh boy! I'm sorry, I'm going to ruin your day. And it was a great Wednesday until I. The debt spiral is simple. I'm going to make it very simple and very quick. The debt spiral is simple, and what we're saying is, what I've been saying is that if the if the United States government was a company that's traded on the New York Stock Exchange, it would be a zombie company. And what do I mean by that? I mean that their income and mandatory expenses combined don't leave enough money left over to pay for the interest on their debt. So they're a dead man walking. Now, I understand that they're not a company. I understand that the Fed can and the Treasury can print their own money. I talked about it today on a thread that seemed to be very people really want to hear about that. But so the bottom line is, though, just to give numbers for people to understand and wrap their head around, 2024, our run rate right now, tax revenues around $4.4 trillion. That's what the government makes. Not really. We make it, they take it. But that's the government's revenue. Okay. But we're spending over $6 trillion. Let's call it $6.5 trillion. That gives us a $2 to $2.1 trillion deficit, I'm guessing, this year. But let's just break it down. Let's pull it back. $4.4 trillion of revenue. The mandatory expenses that we have are Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment, those things, entitlements. $4.1 trillion. Okay. Now you have $300 billion left. You've just spent $4.1 trillion. Well, we've got defense, which is very important. And we're spending somewhere around $800 to $900 billion there. Let's call it $850 billion. Well, now you're just shy of $5 trillion. Okay, now you're spending $600 trillion more than you're making. Then you've got interest on your debt. Well, we're paying $1.1 trillion of interest on our debt. We get some interest back because of intergovernment agencies. Let's call it $850 billion of interest on your debt. So your total mandatory is somewhere around $5.8 trillion, right? 4.1 plus 850 plus 850. Remember, we said that our tax revenues are 4.4 trillion. So you're already $1.4 trillion in the hole. And that's before discretionary spending. That's before, spending money on nonsense. So that's why our debt is growing every year. And that's why we added, over $2 trillion of debt last year, because we are operating in perpetual deficit. So what do? The issue is now the Fed has raised rates. Those interest expenses are going up. So they're over $1.1 trillion of interest expense. And that's just rising. So what can you do? You've got three options. If you're in this situation, you've got three options. You can have austerity, which is cutting spending, and that's political suicide. Neither party is going to cut entitlements because remember, you could cut out all of the discretionary spending, and you can even cut out all of the defense spending, and you still are not covering your obligations, which are your entitlements of $4.1 trillion and about $900 billion of net interest. That's $5 trillion. You're still $600 billion in the hole. You're not covering it. So what do? Well, you're not going to cut entitlements. I'm Gen X, and I don't expect to get all my Social Security because I think it's kind of inflating away. It's nonsense, but I've paid into it for 30 years. I'm pissed off. I paid into that thing for 30 years, and they've just absolutely decimated it. This is the other thing is we're not even talking about. If you pull up the debt clock, you guys have seen this thing, right? Debtclock.com. If you pull that up and you look all the way down on the right-hand side, there's something that's called unfunded liabilities.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And this is what I'm talking. These are all the unfunded liabilities. This is Social Security. This is all the Medicare, Medicaid, and all that Medicare liabilities. That's $215 trillion. Just put that over there. I'm not like, it's so mind blowing. Your brain can't even process it, but let's just put that over there. So are you going to have austerity? The answer is no, because it's political suicide. Neither party will do it. They'll try to trick each other to do it. You see it all the time. But the reality is the debt ceiling gets raised. Every single party does it. Both parties do it back to back to back to back to back. They're all on the same team, remember, and they just keep spending to get reelected. And so there it is, $215 trillion. I mean, good.
Just rolling, man. Look at that thing smoking.
Good Lord.
Accelerate, baby. Let's go.
I mean, it's going up by $1 million by just every few seconds,
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
so then, what's your second option? Your second option is to raise taxes. Okay. You can raise taxes. Let's raise taxes on the rich, but that really means you're raising taxes on a lot of small companies. Not a good plan, because it disincentivizes productivity. It disincentivizes reinvestment into those product lines that are profitable. It disincentivizes you hiring people and expanding on these profitable lines or doing research and development. So what happens? Well, you get a higher tax rate on decreased productivity, and you wind up in the same spot. But the problem is now you've got productivity that's declining. So you're even in a worse spot. It doesn't work. We've seen it play out in governments before. It's not a good plan. It would only, if our taxes are not so low that we should be raising them to do that, in my opinion. Then the third option is to just issue more debt. It's like you're a single parent and you're working a couple jobs, you got kids, and you've got your mandatory expenses. You've got your house or rent or whatever. You've got your utilities. You've got your car expense so you can get to your job. You've got your kids' food. You got to feed them, and if you're not making ends meet, what are you going to do? You're going to take out a credit card, right? And eventually you're just going to keep running up that debt until that credit card's full. And then you're going to take out another credit card. And eventually you're going to take out another credit card just to pay the interest on the other credit cards. That is currently where we're at with the government, because we have to issue more debt every year to pay the interest on the debt from the prior years and to pay off debt that is maturing. So we have no choice. Mathematically, this is where we are. That's what we're doing. We're just issuing more debt. But when you do that, what do you need? Well, you need high nominal GDP. That means you need high inflation. You need dollars to become cheaper so you can pay down the past debt with cheaper dollars in the future. And that's the plan. And we've been doing it for a long time. We're going to continue doing it and keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. When that is, I don't know. The answer is, where are we in that? The question was, where are we in that cycle? Well, we're in the part where we're at a crossroads. Are we going to allow the economy to just fall into disrepair here and crash it by either keeping rates high too long or raising them even higher, which is not really an option, because you can't have the treasuries collapse. Because remember, if in a recession, a deep recession, typically you'll see your tax receipts will fall like 8 to 12%. And your entitlement spending will rise by 8 to 12% because of unemployment and all that. So entitlements. So you've got a 20% larger hole that you're looking at. It just doesn't, mathematically, they can't have that. So they'll print before they do that, which means that you'll have high inflation. And that's the most likely outcome, is that we're right now in a situation where we're going to continue to inflate. In fact, we're in a situation right now which was unforeseen to me in the beginning of 2023, and I started realizing it later in 2023, that the federal government is spending so much money that we're in something called fiscal dominance. So we're spending so much money fiscally. We're in a $2 trillion deficit run rate in peacetime, arguably peacetime. We're never in peacetime, but you guys know what I mean. That's why we have you guys. But the we're not in a recession, and we're running these massive deficits. Well, that's inflationary, and that has been causing problems for the Fed. The Fed has raised rates; it's not working, and we're running into a period that kind of looks like we're stumbling into a stagflationary period where you've got rise in prices but a contraction in the economy. So we'll see what happens. But that's where we're at. That's the spot we're at, and I'm watching very closely. I'm watching the bond market very closely to see what happens from here.
So
that was a longer answer than I meant to give, but you guys get it.
No, that was great.
It's a talk show, man. We're here to listen.
Here to talk,
yeah. So I feel like a lot of people I've been talking to over the last year or so, and kind of the timeline you just kind of gave, where people were expecting a recession to hit. They were just like your normal kind of person that's not in this as much as we are all looking into it as much, or just kind of expecting it and seeing the writing on the wall. And then it seemed to not come. And there's still it seems like most of them are waiting for it to come at some point. And I know this kind of sounds like I'm asking you to look in a crystal ball and give us an answer of when's it going to happen, but just general, for people that are thinking along those lines, what would be your answer to them?
Yeah, well, why do you hear so many people frustrated, angry? They're not making ends meet. They're taking out more debt. They're not making payments on their debt. They're not making rent payments. They're missing their payments on the buy now, pay later. We're seeing a spike in that. We're seeing a spike in credit card debt for the younger demographics. Why is that? They're not making ends meet. Why is that? Because parts of the economy are already in recession, Jordan. And what we're seeing is that there's parts of the economy that are feeling it. People are being laid off in tech companies. Part of that may be a little bit AI. I don't think so. I think it's just it's a little bit of a contraction of margins. Why? Because when you have sectors of the economy that are very dependent on interest rates because they borrow, they operate with high debt, and then they have to borrow. Well, higher interest rates really do impact them. They're not paying 5% for their debt. They're paying upwards of 9, 12, 15%. So it's heavily impactful to them, and they're feeling that crunch. And they're feeling those margins compress, and so they're letting people go, and or they're just not raising wages to keep up, and so people's wages are not keeping up in most of the economy. But real, when you, we're not talking about CPI here. We're talking about the real number. The numbers that they don't show us, which is closer to the expansion of the money supply, which is closer to the 7% plus rate, not 2.5 or 2.3 or 3.3%. That's so. But then you have to look at also, there are pockets of the economy that are doing very well. Infrastructure, lots of spending on infrastructure from from Bidenomics and the Inflation Reduction Act, which is really just inflationary, and green projects, and they're dumping capital into areas of the economy, and that feels expansionary. And as the government operates in deficit, that's more money. It just is pouring into the economy. They're borrowing from the future. Think of it like this: debt is not a bad thing when you use it responsibly. Right. So I use this example, say you want to open a restaurant. Restaurants, they're kind of usually terrible business. Let's just pretend that it's a great spot, perfect demographic. You're going to open up a taco stand, right? I love tacos. Why not? So brisket tacos, you're going to have brisket tacos. And so, but how do you do that? Right. So you say you've got $5,000 in the bank, but it's going to take a total of all the equipment and all the approvals and to get the permits and all that's going to cost you $100,000. Let's say it's going to cost you $100,000, but you've got $5,000 or $10,000 in the bank. You've got to go borrow that money to do it, or you've got to wait until you can tuck away $100,000, and by then it's going to cost $200,000. But let's just pretend you can, and then do it. But instead, let's say that you take your $5,000 or $10,000, you put it up. Okay. You put your $10,000 up, you borrow the other 90, and you buy the equipment, you buy the truck, you buy the all of the cooking equipment and the utensils, and you hire somebody to come in there to do it with you, and you're paying their salary. And suddenly you have just taken that $90,000 or $100,000 in total and injected it into the economy. You borrowed it from the bank and you've injected into the economy, and now you're doing something. You're out there, you're selling tacos, and you're making revenue, and you're paying wages, and you're paying taxes, and that's like, okay. So, and if you're profitable, that's great. All you've done is, instead of waiting until you had the $100,000 to open up that restaurant, you've just pulled future productivity into today. That's all you've done. And if you do it responsibly, that's okay. It's not a bad thing. Now you've leveraged that $10,000 to do something where you're making $10,000 a year, because I hope you make a whole lot more than that, but you understand my point, right? So
like, I guess a real quick follow-up on that, because you kind of touched on it. When I talk to like buddies that have like a master's in economics or whatever, and it's very like Keynesian focused, and when I try to talk to them about the deflationary aspect of Bitcoin, they like repulse at that, because they see the lack of money being injected as like,
right.
Why would anybody spend anything? Why wouldn't they just keep holding it if it's deflationary? And obviously I think as Bitcoiners, we get that there's things you're still going to need to survive. There's something where, like, obviously there's a point where there's too much of it, and that's what we're experiencing. We experience too much of this injection. How do you, it seemed like you were kind of touching on it. Like, there's like a friction point between there that seems like the Keynesians and like the deflationary mindset. Like,
well, just think about it. Jeff Booth talks about this, right? I'm sorry, was there something else?
No, yeah.
So Jeff Booth talks about this, and this is actually what it made all click for me, is that deflationary versus inflationary forces, right? You have the deflationary forces of technology and technological advances, right? I mean, look at what we've got here. We've got we've got 4 people in a room that are probably sitting in different places around the world, right? At least around the United States. What would it take to get us in that room, right? And how much money would it take to get us in the same room, to get us all in cars, in Ubers, in airplanes, and and then all sitting together to talk, right? So that's deflationary because of technology. Now we're spending money on our internet connection, and we all have to have cameras, but we can do this. I do it hundreds of times a year now. So it's, it's very deflationary. It's not just, so that's just a simple example. Jeff Booth uses the example of your phone. Like, okay, well, if you wanted, when I was a kid, I had to go down to the, a place called Tower Records to go get at the time it was cassette tapes until I was a teenager. Then it was CDs. And so, and you had to physically buy a $15 CDs to get 12 songs, sometimes 9 songs if they phoned it in, fuckers. But, and then you suddenly wake up in 2006 and Steve Jobs is like, it's an iPod in your pocket. It's like, so now you have thousands and thousands and thousands of songs that all you have to do is be a member of Apple Music or Spotify. And you've got all that active for what? $9 a month, $10 a month. Holy shit. Talk about deflationary, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing. It's just like things like that are super deflationary. We should be getting the benefit of that, but we're not. Why? Because we have to have inflation. That's why we keep expanding the money supply, because you have to have inflation, because the debt, the treasury debt will literally collapse if we have deflation. Imagine if GDP went down next year. It was going down 10, 20% a year instead of up, whatever it is. So that's why you have these forces that are colliding. So to answer your question about deflation, can you imagine, and then this is the hard thing to do, is to wrap your head around, is imagine an environment where we all produce these things And with technology, we produce more and more of that with less and less work. What do you care if you don't spend that money today? You know, you just keep producing and producing, and you're getting this benefit of these things that we're with technology. Eventually you get to the point where, you know, I don't know if it's utopia, because I like to have purpose on earth, and I'm not sure, and work is a purpose, you know, but there's some sort of there comes to be a point where you're in this balance where you're getting all of these things that are almost for free, because you're all working together, and you're not having to make more money and save the money and fight the inflation and tuck it away and, oh God, don't take it from me, and like, you're not worried about that. You're all making these things, you're getting these technological advances, you're getting the benefit from them. And Bitcoin allows you to exchange value without being inflated. You know, it's not about, oh, I need to have $21 million worth of Bitcoin. No, you don't. Everything is going down in price. You're not worried about spending it, you know, because the on the other side of it is you're worrying about you worry about spending your dollars today in order to make sure you get the value of it. Right. So if you hold on to your dollars, you know, later you'll end up getting more if you're in a deflationary environment. So, you know, and we're going to still need food. We're going to still need things, and people are going to want to work. They're going to want to do things. It will be in balance. They will find the balance because we have actual hard money to exchange with that's not being manipulated and bastardized. That's the point.
That just makes you realize like how much worse the inflation really is. Even if they did the CPI like the way they used to do the CPI, just the fact that of how much deflation has been technology has been bringing prices down.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's even worse.
The real VIG is from you have to add in the deflationary forces on top of CPI to get the real inflation rate. Exactly.
That's crazy.
And that's mind blowing when you think about it that way. It's absolutely infuriating. And that's why you have a lot of people out there saying that inflation is just theft. And when you ask, Powell was asked about this on 60 Minutes 6 or 8 weeks ago. And he was asked, why 2% inflation? Like, where's that number come from? And what's the point? And he gave that 90-second word salad answer, and blah, 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 and all it meant was, it's what we can get away with.
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
For now.
Get away with.
And that is slipping every day. I mean, what a bunch of patient people. I mean, since 2020, what have we seen? Probably really about double-digit inflation, if not better than, you know, simple digital double digits. Like that's incredible. I have to say this. You touched on brisket tacos there too. If anybody else didn't catch it, I'm going to plug our guys again. KCC made or deliver some amazing beef to your house. You can go out there and get a hell of a side of beef. 21% off from those guys. So go check out KCC.
My next brisket. I smoke brisket out here. I mean, I lived in Texas for 20 years, so I smoke brisket in my backyard here.
That I was going to say, I think I saw yours on Super Bowl Sunday, and I was doing the same thing. And I was like,
oh, that's right. Yeah.
James he smokes his boy. We're about to sound like a bunch of sports commentators. Hey, James smokes his meat too. All the unintentional, very gay sounding stuff. We're going to stay away from that. But I am interested in like. Obviously, you've got an incredible mind for the space and have done some amazing things. I also like to just kind of bring that human element into the show, especially because I think the human element of Bitcoin is, one of it is the piece, right? Like without the human beings, Bitcoin doesn't matter. And with that side of it, you said you're a dad, and you see this world and where it's at right now. I know we've all got kids. I think there's probably some later nights than usual these days with what's going on in the world. You know, we're thinking our minds are wargaming, trying to get to the point where, you get some, maybe a little bit of rest, but at the same time, have a world that's more prepared for when they're ready to take it over. And I wonder kind of how, a guy like yourself, went about fatherhood, what you see in store for a future for him with Bitcoin, and Are you hopeful, and are you excited, and any tidbits of fatherhood that you can sprinkle on this audience?
No, I mean, I'm super hopeful, and I'm an optimistic person by nature. You can probably tell by my personality. I'm optimistic. I think that if we didn't have Bitcoin, I would be troubled. And all I would be doing, and look, the fiat system has benefited me by being in hedge funds and all of that. I mean, I've ridden my ups and downs. Trust me, I've had my booms and busts. But I think that I would just be trying to teach them how to get as much money as they can, as fast as they can, and how to manage it, how to invest it. With Bitcoin, I'm less panicked about it. I'm more focused on teaching them the problems with the system and how they can protect themselves from it, not how they need to be, how they need to be hyper attentive to their portfolio daily, more along the lines of, these are the things you can do to protect yourself over the long term. And Bitcoin is a central part of that, in my opinion, and for them. And so, that's an important piece of it. Like they're the kids, they're not kids, and they're 24 and 22. I mean, they're graduating college. And so, the point is, for me, it's probably most important just to instill that hard work does give you reward at some point. If you put those hours in, it is proof of work. I do believe that. I don't believe you have to toil away and you have to make it hard on yourself, but I do believe in proof of work. And that's important, homeschool. I mean, if I had the hours, I would have thought about that, but I was, like many people, toiling away, trying to keep up with the fiat system, the fiat madness. I would think twice about where I send my kids to school now. There's a lack of critical thinking out there. And so one of the most important things, Shane, that we did with my wife, is we sat around the dinner table, and this is both with my ex and my now wife. We sat around the dinner table with the kids every single night and talked, from the time that they were just tiny, all the way up to now. We never all took our plates and went off and watched TV, or we had movie night in front of the TV with dinner. Sometimes that was fun, but by and large, one of the things that we did, and what's interesting, is that we bought a big round table. And so we had this round table that we all sat around every single night, and everybody got their spots. It just happens that way. It's human nature that, the kids had their spots. Dad's was closest to the kitchen because I was cooking the steaks, but it was kind of like we're all equal. And I was teaching them lessons, but we were also engaging and asking questions and laughing and having fun. It was a time to just be together every single night. And now what we find is that they come over for dinner. They want to have that. They want to have that dinner. They want to have that night together. What are we having tonight? What are we saying? And we all laugh and tell jokes, tell stories. And then they'll sometimes bring friends over, and it blows their mind. They're like, you do this, this is normal for you? You guys sit around and do this every night? And they love it. They love coming over and have fun. And that was really that right there was the key for us, is communication with us. Because going back to the homeschooling, didn't have time. Going back to, I could have made different choices. I can't say you don't have time. I made the choice that I was going to do this, but, handing your kids over to administrators that you may or may not mesh with or agree with, believe in what they're teaching your kids. Well, your kids are going to respect you, obviously, if you treat them with respect. Yeah, you have to be a parent. They're looking for those guidelines. They're looking for the barriers, and where's the fairway? Am I off the fairway? I want to go off the fairway. All right, pull me back on. They do that on purpose, and you get them on the fairway, and they want to know where those barriers are. That's part of your role as a parent. But then you talk to them as a human being. They get, you gain that respect, and those lessons around those dinner tables, and just talking to them as a person, just talking to them and giving them those lessons, and not making everything a lesson, but giving them those insights and stories and what you've learned along the way. Man, there's no replacing that. And there's a lot of hours that I see, unfortunately, people waste with kids and with their iPads at the TV or their phones, or they just hand them the headphones and parents can talk and have a glass of wine. That's a lot. That, to me, that was lost opportunity. So we made sure that we took that time. We took advantage of that time that was kind of built into our schedule. We're going to have a meal anyways. Why not do it together?
Oh, I love it. I love that so much. My parents did that with us all the time. And I got to tell you, that's something, they live just a ridge over. My brother's a ridge that way. And it's like, we all still love getting together just for that reason. I think that's an incredible piece of information and parenting. I think we saw some proof of parenting in there in the comments, but yeah, absolutely. Get your kids together, talk to them every night, have them be open with you, and those lines of communication. That's it right there.
Oh man, and the stories. Dad, tell that story about when you got in that hockey fight again. Dad, tell the story. Yeah. So, I'm sorry, Gabe. Go ahead. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. No, I was just gonna say, man, that's the evidence right there. And especially in the way that the world is going now, those relationships are so important because there are so many distracting outside forces that are working to tear families apart. And it's not just, the normal distractions I'll call normal from, 50 years ago. There are intentional forces that do not want families to be close together.
Mm-hmm.
And and I commend you for doing that. On continuing on the topic of I guess what we can just call the human side of things. So we focus a lot on community within our Bitcoin veterans group, and we've got a growing, strong community of individuals that are fired up to get involved in Bitcoin and in changing things for the better.
Yeah.
And I guess, in light of all the things that we've been talking about tonight, what is a way that you could envision a community of people, like a group of veterans, working together to change things for the better?
Oh man, that's a deep question. Well, the thing is, what I know, and from my friends who have served, is that you guys, and Preston served, they're like you guys have knowledge and understanding of what happens in this world at a level that, like, nobody understands. So I've gone camping with John and his Army buddies, and we did it last year. We'll do it again this June. They don't mind having a hockey guy around. It's fine. But the real world lessons that you guys have are invaluable, and bringing those to people around you in a way that, and look, I'm going to be honest with you. You guys have been through some stuff that's absolutely, utterly brutal that normal people do not want to let their brains go to. They don't want to think about that. They just don't. So it doesn't really help. It'd be like, if I come out and if I come right into a cocktail party and, and if it's a buttoned up cocktail party, I come right in with the debt spiral problem, they're like,
Yeah,
whatever, you're freaking nuts, So it's the same sort of thing. Is like that. Look, they don't think about the things that you guys have seen. John's explained some stuff that he's seen, and that's and I keep referencing John because he's the one I see almost every single week here. But this is something that most people cannot understand. So you have this experience that most people around you don't have, and you can take that and just extrapolate it just maybe 1 degree, like, and make it a derivative of that. So you can all present this knowledge in a way that's not so, And to us, it's violent, I mean, it's like, it's not something you want to think about. Like, you see it on TV, it's not real. When you say that you've really seen this stuff and been through this stuff, it's not like TV is not real. Like, I've been in the real one, it's hard to like even conceptualize. So, I mean, in no way, shape, or form have I done anything like you guys have done. And in my normie world, but what I do find helps is using that knowledge and the experience in a way that people can relate to. And that's probably the bridge that is there, because you get them to a spot where I never thought about the world that way. God, you did see something like that out there. You saw these communities over there that, I didn't understand they operate like that, because you can't even conceptualize it. So to me, like, you have a depth of knowledge and understanding of the human will, the human way, the human spirit, in a way that most people just don't get. And so you can relate that in a tangible but maybe less graphic way,
Man,
does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually, that correlation had not ever clicked for me before. And it's something that I feel like I'd had sensed, but just had not been able to articulate in that way. So yeah, that's awesome, because there are similarities there, and it's, when that light comes on and you really see the world and Bitcoin's place in the fiat system for what it actually is. I mean, it's like you said, it's almost like it's a violent experience just seeing that. And then to go, like you said, to walk in and just like start bashing people over the head with, have fun staying poor and all this other stuff. It doesn't, they don't get it.
It doesn't resonate. Yeah, it doesn't resonate.
Yeah, but having that experience of already, communicating the veteran experience with people that, that haven't had an opportunity to be a part of that, it gives us more or less a template and a framework that we can rely on while we're also communicating Bitcoin to other people. Yeah, that was thank you for that.
Yeah, no doubt.
That reminded me of when we had Breedlove on. He made the comment about how people will learn one of two ways. They'll either learn through experience from other people, or they'll learn through pain. And most people kind of skip the education part and trying to learn through other people's experience, and they will not learn until pain comes. And I think something we need to be better at as veterans is do what you said, James, is try to convey our experiences and maybe sell it in a way, maybe tone down some of the darkness, but also explain the pain that can be behind all of the things that we experienced or that we saw other people experience because they weren't better prepared. But it doesn't have to be that way. So I think as veterans, we probably need to do a better job of telling some of our stories in a way that's more palpable towards, a normie, as you would say, but also conveys the pain so that maybe there's a way to kind of bridge the gap between experience and pain.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, I'm not saying you guys are desensitized to it. But it's kind of like, if I cut myself and I'm bleeding all over the place, I'm like, shit, I didn't want to get blood on the rug, like I've seen a lot of my own blood, so I'm not freaking out. You guys have seen stuff. You guys have been to hell and back, and you've seen things other people have never seen, never even experienced except on a TV, and so yeah, and you can see how Bitcoin is a hope and can fix a lot of oppression and problems that we have in this world, and that's an incredible message, and who better to deliver that than people who have been in that physical violence and physical oppression, rather than just, my dollar's being inflated away. No, like, they literally killed your child because you spoke out against the regime. Okay, well, you guys have seen that shit. We haven't. We hear about it, but so.
You guys ready for an upper?
Yeah, let's
go, man.
Not to trivialize anything, but you know what time it is.
What is story time?
Oh, story time.
Who the fuck said that? What have we got here? A fucking comedian, private joker.
All right, everybody. You know what time it is. It's story time. You got the memo. I sent it to you, James. I hope you got a fantastic, just outrageously hysterical hockey story ready.
No pressure.
I posted this on Twitter with like a wink, wink, and a nudge, nudge, and a little caption in there for you from what was that, Slapshot, and one of my absolute favorite movies when I was a kid. Just a bananas hockey movie, but it's one of those things where I was like, yeah, James probably got some pretty damn good stories. And, I would love to hear whatever you got for us tonight.
A hockey story. You guys want to hear a fight story? You want to hear I've got my first fight story, like my first real fight story. So here I am, an 18-year-old kid, right? And I'm playing in. Okay, so let's back up. I've just been accepted to Yale, and I'm going to play Division I hockey. And I'm thinking, I'm big time, man. I'm gonna play Division I hockey. I am the shit. I am, right? You're an 18-year-old kid. You really think you're like something special. Well, then I get we don't have email back then, but I get the letter that in the summer we played in Boston. We played in these leagues in Boston, and so all the pros and the Division I hockey players would come in, who were the young pros and the Division I will come and play in this league. Is called Pro Elite, and so if you were in Division I hockey, you would get to play with the pros and the Division I players and like all the big time players. And I was like, all right, awesome. I am so good. I'm going to be in that league. Wow. And I get my Pro Elite package, and there it is. And my, when to show up, and it says Pro Elite Division II. I'm like, hold on a second. What do you mean Division II? What kind of crap is this? And so, but I'm a kid. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to play in Division II. My dad, who did serve in the Navy, and he was a nuclear engineer. He designed steam turbines for Navy nuclear for many years. But he grew up in very poor, like he grew up in projects, little Ukrainian Russian projects down on the east side of Manhattan. That's now Alphabet City. It's like a trendy place. I mean, the wall to his bedroom was literally, it was an inside wall, but the building next door had fallen down. So all he had is like, he had like, just that little inside wall. What's it called? The
bulkhead.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, if he bumped up against it too hard, he'd fall out. Anyway, so he's a tough guy, and he was a really tough guy. But he is like, well, you tell them you need to be in Division I. You're a Division I hockey player. I'm like, well, they put me in Division II. It's okay. He's like, you tell them. I was like, okay. So I call up, and I was like, hey, I don't know if there was a mistake, and I'm talking to this guy, Joe Lyons, and Joe Lyons is the head of the league. And he's like, yeah, well, I mean, it's Yale, it's Division I, but you guys were at the bottom of the league last year. And so, let's see how you do. I was like, well, just give me a shot. He goes, okay, I tell you what, come up next Thursday and you'll play for, or next Tuesday, sorry, you'll play for the Bruins, because we had the teams, the Bruins and the Flyers and whatever. And so you'll play for the Bruins team, and we'll see how you do. It's like, okay. So I go up there, and I go and I suit up, and I'm looking around the locker room. And now we're in a locker room down, I think it was in Quincy. And so Quincy, Massachusetts. I mean, not a really pretty place, right? And the locker, the door is kind of off the crease and whatever. And I'm sitting around, I'm looking around, I'm like, holy shit. Like, these are some big time players, Steve Heinz, who played for BC, and wow, that's Ted Donato, who's like, he's going to be the captain of Harvard. And like, I'm looking around, and Harvard just won they had just won the NCAA. They were the number one team in the nation. And so I'm like, wow, these are really some good players. What am I doing here? I'm still in high school, and I just graduated high school. And so, but I go out there, and the coach, he's like, okay, well, this Lavish guy, I'm just going to put him with the two best players. God knows he'll just blow up whatever line he's on. So at least we put him with Heinz and with and Donato, he might do okay, because those two are like superstars. And Donato, and he goes on to be the captain of the Olympic team like that year. So anyway, so I'm on this line. I'm playing right wing, and this is an involved story, but it's a good one. And so I'm just skating along, and I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just like, okay, back up a little bit further. I was a defenseman in high school, but I was recruited to be a forward in college because I was the leading scorer in my high school hockey team, even as a defenseman, because I just rushed the puck and just go, because my thing was speed. So they're like, you need to be a forward. What are you doing on defense? So he pushed me up to forward. I didn't really know the position. I mean, I knew you just go up and down the right hand wing. I've watched them do it for 20 years, but I'm like, okay. But when you're in it, it's suddenly different because you're like, in defense, I could see the whole play develop in front of me. But when you're a forward, all of a sudden it's all around you, and I don't know where everybody is. Like Gretzky knew where everybody was on the ice, like all the time. I didn't even know where like my center was. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So, and I'm just trying to keep up. I'm skating as hard as I can, I'm like, I'm going towards the net. Next thing I know, I'm in front of the net, and the puck's on my stick, and the goalie is out of the net. And Donato had made a deke, and he gave me the puck, and there I am. I'm like, okay, goal. And then he did it again, and then he did it again. And then he did it again. I'm like, I scored 4 goals. I'm like,
holy shit.
What?
Now I'm back to thinking, yeah, I'm pretty good.
I'm awesome.
No shit.
Deep down, I know it's because of Donato and Heinz. And I'm like, okay. Well, so I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm skating back to the bench. Yeah. Like fourth goal. Yeah. And I feel this boom. And I, get hit from behind. And immediately I think, okay, they sent somebody after me to see if I can protect myself. So I'm not even thinking, and my gloves are off, and I'm turning around to fight, right? So I'm turning around. I'm going to fight this guy. And I turn around, I look. Oh, shit. It's Ron Aubrey. Go ahead and Google Ron Aubrey. He was the all-time penalty minute record holder in the ECHL, which is the league that the movie Slapshot was modeled after, the ECHL. And he's the all-time record penalty holder.
Oh, geez.
His head's like this big. He looks down at me and he goes, I'm an 18-year-old, 172-pound, soaking wet through all of my equipment. And I just look up and I'm like, I grab on and I'm like, hold on as hard as you can. Just hold on as tight as you can. Like his fist was so big. My nose, like I'm broke. My nose is broken. I'm just holding on. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to let go. I'm not going to go down. I'm not going down. The refs finally come in and break. They're like, get this kid out of here. He's going to get himself killed. They send me off to the locker room. Anyway, so I held on and I didn't die. And flash forward another, I think it's like 3 years later. Now I've seen Ron here and there, because now we've done it. We're buddies. We can have a beer after the game, right?
Yeah.
So, are you looking him up? Like, look up this guy. He's just nuts. And so he's huge. He ends up going to be a professional boxer. So I.
So did you break your nose all 7 times at once?
That would have been easier.
Oh, that is a fantastic story.
So flash forward, I think it's 3 years later, 2 or 3 years later, and so every summer, at the end of the summer, you would all get together, the pro hockey players and the semi-pro hockey players and Division I players would all get together. We all worked out at a place at Boston University, and the coach there, Mike Boyles, was the strength coach for the Boston Bruins, and he was our strength coach in the summer for all of us. It didn't matter if you were playing for the Ducks, the Penguins, the Pens, or the Flyers. It doesn't matter. We were all there. If we were all the same age. It was that age group of Billy Guerin and those are all the guys in there. Bobby Kellogg and those guys were all in there. And so I'm sitting there in the locker room, and it's the week before camp, like the pro camps, right? So it's like the prep week, and the college kids will all go out there in the prep week to help the pros prep, because they're all going to their camps. They're going to the pro camps. And I'm sitting there, and I feel this presence next to me, and I can feel it. And I'm like, and I'm tying my skates, and I look up, and I'm like, it's Ron Aubrey. I'm like, Ron, what are you doing? Now, this is years later, so we know each other. I'm like, Ron, what are you doing? He's pulling a black trash bag over his head under his equipment. And I don't remember what the numbers were, but he was like 250 pounds. He had to get down to like 225 or something. It was in his contract. And if he didn't get down, they're going to release him. So he had to drop like 25 pounds. I want to say it was like in 9 days. It was something absolutely insane. And he's wearing this trash bag, like a Glad trash bag under his equipment. Okay. Yeah, that's Ron. And so he's wearing this trash bag under his equipment, and damn if he doesn't figure out a way to lose all that weight and go to camp and retain his contract. But he's a tough dude, really tough dude.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
My professional boxer. That's amazing.
But I do have all my teeth.
That's impressive.
For all of that.
I was not
That's
the guy
impressive.
who chewed his mouth guard on the outside of his mouth like Kachuk, which his dad did the same thing. He chewed the mouth guard just hanging out of his face, like I actually kept it in because I figured,
Smart.
I wanted my teeth and I didn't want a concussion. So, although I got plenty of those too, obviously.
Oh man,
That's awesome.
I love guys with other stories like this. Gabe and Jordan, let's throw it around and tie a bow on this one.
Man, I just thank you for that story, dude. I'm going to research this guy. I'm going to be like, yeah, I know a guy that got his ass whipped by him and survived. That's amazing. But yeah, thank you, man. Thanks for being here. It's been awesome. And it was said earlier on that you have a way of taking complex subjects and making them easy to understand. And I feel like you've done that. So thank you for that. I'm walking away from this with a clear understanding of things. So I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you, Gabe. It's been awesome. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, this has been great. I really appreciate it. I know we kind of touched on it earlier, but there really is because I know some other hockey players too. In fact, somebody you might know that I'll talk to you offline after this. But you guys are like veterans and hockey players have a lot in common. So I think you're part of the family, whether you know it or not.
Or
You're in.
Want to be.
Yeah, you may not want to be. I mean, you might be like, no.
Your family.
Yeah.
Your family.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jordan.
But,
I do appreciate that, because I do feel like there's some sort of camaraderie there, and again, it's just a mindset and a little bit of grittiness and whatever. But yeah,
I think what it comes down to is like just dudes that have done tough things like get each other. They don't have to have done the same thing, but there's a mentality there of just like men being men that is very lost and very much needed in society. So I think like-minded people like that coming together is really important. So, and plus you're smart as hell on top of it too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Jordan. I do appreciate it. It's been fun to be here and hang with you guys. And story time's fun too.
Hell yeah.
Best part of the show. Sometimes I think we should leave with it, but when we cover such dark subjects out there, sometimes you gotta leave them with some levity, and I believe that's one of the better stories that we've ever had. So leave it to James Lavish to come in here and throw a high bar. But James, thank you very much. I mean, to have you on the show means a lot to all of us and the whole Bitcoin veterans community. This community is growing like crazy out there, and I got to tell you, it's a pleasure to be a part of it. It's a pleasure to do the show with guys like yourself, Gabe and Jordan. Thanks for coming in tonight. Alex, hope you guys are well. Mike too, And for everybody out there, if you want to be part of this, if you want to be on the mission, you want to get that passion back in your life, that sovereignty, the freedom, liberty that they told us about as kids and then perverted and did some crazy stuff with us overseas. This is the mission. If you're new to Bitcoin, it's a great community full of people who want to teach, who want to reinvest, the people that want self-sovereignty, that are looking for independence and a change in this paradigm. And so if you're not familiar with us, get familiar with us. Contact us on Twitter, drop us a message. We'll throw you into the group chats. There is everything from ham radio education going on to Citadel talks to what Gabe is working on in terms of Operation Bitcoin, which is skill sharing. So if you're transitioning out or you're already out and you're looking for a place in Bitcoin to try to make ends meet and get a job and succeed, get in touch with Gabe. And then there's the Brave mission for post-traumatic stress, and we've got so much going on behind the scenes. I would be remiss if I didn't mention we have 70% off discounts for the Bitcoin Magazine Nashville, July 24th through the 27th show. We'll be going out to the range. We're going to do area cleanup. We've got so much happening just there. The Bitcoin Citadel and the Bitcoin Veteran Citadel will be stood up with our own area. It's like 3,000 square feet. We're going to have so much going on. We've got even better discounts for PB this year in October. So if you're coming to that, let us know if you're on the West Coast or anywhere else, and we'll get you in there for a deep discount. But James, again, you guys can go out and find them on Twitter. It'll all be in the show notes. What a fantastic show. Great guest. Thanks for everything that you're doing in the space. And I tell you what, it's an amazing place to have, guys like you intermingling with guys like this. And yeah, truly welcome to the Bitcoin Veterans family. Look forward to meeting up with you next time, hopefully in Nashville or at PB, and having a beer.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's been an honor, and thank you all for each of you for your service. And I sincerely appreciate that. So it's great to be here.
All right, everybody. Until next week, 7 p.m. on Thursday next week. Thanks for almost all 900 of you showing up tonight. Incredible audience. Thank you guys so much. And we will see you next week. Peace.
Nice.